Budget and Tax and Finance Committee. Before we speak to Senate Bill 847, which is our financing mechanism for the two stadia, we are very honored and very pleased to have with us today Mr. Edward Bennett Williams. The members of the committee have asked us on several occasions if Mr. Williams would be agreeable to appearing before the committee and appearing before the legislature. We are honored that he has so agreed. I certainly don't want to take up any additional time of the committee before Mr. Williams speaks, other than to personally, on behalf of the administration, thank Mr. Williams for all he has done for the state, all he has done for the city, and to thank him personally for joining us here today to answer the questions of the committee. Mr. Williams has some brief introductory remarks, and I turn the microphone over to Mr. Williams, and thank you very much, members of the committee. We will get to Senate Bill 847 shortly.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I want to say to you at the outset, by way of apology, that I wish that I were prepared with more precision for the questions that I'm sure you're going to ask me this afternoon. But I honestly didn't know that I was expected to be here until I was told yesterday by members of the media that I was expected to be here at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I was in Boston, I wasn't in Florida, and I came down because I appreciate the fact that you are interested in my views, and I really thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present them to you. I'm not going to take a great deal of time, maybe 4 or 5 minutes at the outset, to tell you where I stand so that then you can have something to shoot at. I bought the Orioles in 1979, and I had never intended to buy them alone because it was much too big a financial risk for me to take with any degree of prudence. I had intended to be a partner of Bill Simon, who used to be Secretary of the Treasury and who really excited my interest in the whole project. But as we moved along, Bill dropped out and I was all alone. We made the purchase, and on August 1 of 1979, I met the press in Baltimore, and I said to all the people who were there gathered that I intended to keep the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore. I said at that time that I would stay so long as we were supported. I meant it. I still mean it. I do keep my word. And I saw a few moments ago, seated over here, John Stedman. And I remember John standing up at that meeting, and he said to me, you know, I called you when the Baltimore Colts moved. And I asked you, as the then president of the Washington Redskins, how you felt about a team moving out of a city. And he said, you said to me that day, he called me Mr. Williams. He said, how do you feel? And I said to John something that he reminded me of on August 1, 1979. I said, I believe that all owners of professional sports franchises hold their teams in trust for the people of the city. I believed that when I said it to John Stedman long before 1979. I believed it on August 1st, 1979, and I believe it today. As we moved along, I met with Mayor Schaefer, then Mayor Schaefer, now Governor Schaefer, and I suggested to him something revolutionary in sports. It had never been done before, but I thought maybe it was a good and fair idea. And I said to him one day, as we were about to negotiate a new lease on Memorial Stadium, Mayor, how would you feel about a profit-sharing deal I am willing to cut the bottom line with the city of Baltimore 50-50. And I'll put all the revenues in. The electronic revenue from television, from radio, from cable, all the revenue from concessions, everything that flows to a baseball team, whether direct or ancillary revenue, and we'll subtract the expenses and we'll cut the bottom line. Well, he kind of gulped. It was a brand new idea to him, and I had no idea how it would come out. I really didn't. But I thought it would be a great idea, first of all, to get the people of Baltimore feeling they had a part of this franchise. And I felt it would induce greater support and that we'd be together as a team in making the Orioles go. Well, as it turned out, he had his financial people look at it, he had his city council look at it, and we signed such a lease. And we've lived with such a lease since 1982. And has it been good for the city of Baltimore? I'll say it has, because the total rent and taxes under this lease have gone up 60.46% over and above what they were under the old lease. The admissions tax has gone up 94.21% since we put this into effect. It has produced a great deal of additional revenue, and we have converted the Baltimore franchise from a 1 million attendance franchise to a 2 million attendance franchise by virtue of hard promotion. I guess it was Dizzy Dean who said it ain't bragging if you've done it. I am proud of the fact that we have been financially good for the city of Baltimore, but I'm prouder of the fact that we have put a good product on the field. No one has said this recently because I've been under kind of a barrage of criticism, and all you people who run for public office understand what that is. Sometimes you don't think you're treated quite fairly by the press, but I guess it's good for our humility when we read things that we don't like about ourselves. And I've read a lot of those things in the last 7 months, some of which weren't quite true. But I want to say to you that prior to this past year, prior to 1987, an aberrational year of which I'm ashamed, we had the best record in baseball. We had the most wins of any team in Major League Baseball over the 7-year period. We had the most wins of any team. We had the best percentage, the best winning percentage. And then all things came apart in 1987, and it's not going to be useful to ask me why they came apart, because I can't contribute to that. I don't know why they came apart, but the Lord knows they did come apart. We had a terrible year, and in the wake of that, we have this controversy over the stadium. Let me say to you in 1 minute where I am on it. I'm exactly where I was in 1979. I have never said to anyone in any conversation, and I challenge anyone to produce any witness that I have ever talked to anyone about leaving the city of Baltimore. I have no intention to leave the city of Baltimore. I believe that I hold that franchise in trust for the city of Baltimore, and I don't break my word. I have never threatened anyone that we needed a new stadium or I'd get out. I have said from the beginning that I would like a new stadium, and I'll tell you why I would like a new stadium. And I believe a new stadium is going to be necessary. I believe a sports complex is going to be necessary if Baltimore is going to attract a national football team. And I believe it's going to be necessary if the Baltimore Orioles can stay a viable franchise economically. In other words, if I can break even. That's all I've ever asked to do, break even. Let me break even, and I'm here for life, because, and I'm here forever, because that's all I've asked. I have never taken $1 out of the Baltimore Orioles. I have taken no salary since 1979. I've never taken $1. And those records are on file in the city of Baltimore because we file our financial statements certified by Arthur Anderson every year. I've poured every dollar that has come in the way of profit back into that franchise. Every dollar has gone back into that franchise to make it a winning franchise. Sometimes dollars have been spent imprudently. I plead guilty to that. I plead guilty to that. Because sometimes we've signed contracts of which I'm not particularly proud. But I want to say to you, you're not looking at a greedy owner sitting here today, because I've never taken $1 in dividend or salary or any other way that you can conjure up out of that franchise. Now, why do I think that we need a new stadium? Many things have been done to repair Memorial Stadium. It's so much better than it was. We had a lot of complaints about it in the early days. We now have wonderful offices. The parking is better. But there's one thing that we cannot lick, and dollars cannot lick the problem. And that is that we cannot get enough first-class seats in Baltimore Stadium in order to generate the revenues that are necessary to break even. We have 7,500 seats that are saleable and attractive as season tickets sales. They're attractive seats. They're seats that a person would want to have regularly at his disposal during 81 games of the season. We have reached an economic reality in Major League Baseball. We now need 15,000 of those seats. We really need them because we've had spiraling expenses, diminishing profits. In 1985, the last year for which I have the numbers, 18 teams operated in the red, 8 teams operated in the black. The year before, 1984, 6 teams operated in the black, 20 teams operated in the red. The year before that, 1983, 6 teams operated in the black and 20 teams operated in the red. And in that year, $100 million was lost in the baseball business. In 1984, $60 million was lost, and in 1985, $40 million were lost by the industry. Those numbers are all certified by Big 8 accountants. Now, I see that we are going into a loss situation at Memorial Stadium, and much quicker than I had anticipated. But our accountants have projected where we're going to be in a couple of years, unless we have the necessary seats to sell on a season basis. And we're in the red. And I'm not rich enough to operate a Major League Baseball team in the red. I'm not rich enough to build a new stadium. I'm one of the few people in the major leagues who is a sole owner. There are very few of us. Maybe 2 or 3 sole owners. It's a massive financial risk for me because there is nothing so fragile as a major league team and its appeal, especially when it's losing. And, it's pretty hard to sustain a winning record at all times. Okay, bottom line, I think that Maryland will be so proud of the sports complex that is proposed that nothing that has happened in recent years here, and many great things have happened, will be its equal. I think Maryland will have the finest urban renewal project in America if the sports facilities are put there. I am convinced that a baseball team, from studies that we have made, is worth $100 million to the metropolitan area. It's worth $100 million to the state of Maryland. Today, just look today, for example, I just happened to pick this up coming in today. Here we are, Sports Illustrated out today. What's on the cover? Maryland is on the cover. All over the nation, the Ripken brothers and their father are on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Every single day of the year, Maryland is in the press all over the world because it has a major league facility. It's a major league city. I firmly believe that if it has a football facility, the NFL would come in to Baltimore. I say that because of conversations that I've had with Commissioner Rozelle. I believe the darkest day in sports was when Mr. Irsay backed his trucks up and fled into the night and took the Baltimore Colts with him. And I believe that the NFL owners, insofar as they are capable of guilt, are riddled with guilt over that, and that they want to make reparation. They will not do it at Memorial Stadium because it is not suitable. And it's hard for you, I guess, to believe that, and it's hard for me to believe it because all of us have been out to Memorial Stadium and seen the old Colts with 65,000 people playing before a bedlam of joy. But it's no longer suitable, and Rozelle has said he will not put a team in. I hope and pray that you will see the way to making it economically feasible for the state to build this facility. We'll all be very proud of it. I'm not an outlander. I'm a Marylander. I've lived here for 37 years, and I'm conscious of the taxpayers' concern about spending money. I feel that deeply, and I think that if this facility is built, that everybody will come off feeling good, everybody in the state of Maryland. I think it's a great concept. It will benefit the state. I think that it would be good and useful for the Orioles to have a long-term legal commitment over and above what I say to you morally with a new stadium. And I have told Mayor and Governor Schaefer that I am perfectly willing to sign a long-term lease on a new stadium. Negotiations have been started between the Stadium Authority and two officers from the Orioles, and I'm not able to tell you how much progress has been made, but I'm confident that we can arrive at a lease that is good for the Stadium Authority and a lease that is livable for the Orioles. And that's where I am. So I will continue to sign leases at Memorial Stadium. It's 37 years old. I signed, as I told you, a 6-year lease back in, I think it was '84, and I'm prepared to renew on a year-to-year basis. But I'm not willing to sign a long-term lease on Memorial Stadium, a 37-year-old stadium. I'm willing to sign only very short-term leases on that stadium year to year because every year we have new problems of repairs. Every year we have new problems of keeping that stadium as a first-class facility that need to be recanvassed at least time. I've talked too long. I broke an agreement already with you by talking 15 minutes instead of 5, and I'm sorry, but I tried to cover as much as I could in a statement, and now I guess here comes the trouble.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Thank you for your frankness and your dedication. And I think the first sharpshooter is Senator Lapidus at this point.
I was told to be on guard against Senator Lapidus. That's very tough. No worries.
Mr. Burley, let me say, I don't mean it as sharpshooting, but one, I'm delighted that you became the owner in 1979. I mean that very sincerely. A lot of Baltimore businessmen talked the big game, but did nothing about it. And unfortunately, what happens in Baltimore a lot, they talk big, but when it comes to reaching their own pockets, it's very hard to get that hand out of it. And I really do commend you, and I'm personally delighted that your foresight, that your investment, at least from a capital point of view, from what I read, even though you haven't taken a penny out of it, I think you're doing okay on the capital gains at Memorial Stadium. And if we're willing to put some sky boxes and make everybody happy, and I think the $30 or $40 million of improvement, why will you not sign a lease there that would be a lot cheaper than $200+ million to the people of Maryland?
Well, Senator Lapidus, we've done our own studies, very careful studies, on the whole problem of whether or not we can get into Memorial Stadium enough saleable season seats to make it an economically viable venture. And we can't do it. I haven't met a single architect or any one of the committees which has really looked at Memorial Stadium which says that it is possible, Senator Lapidus, possible to get the kind of seats in there that we could sell on a season basis above the seats that we have. And
I really don't understand, is that a euphemism for expensive seats? I don't understand what's wrong. I've been to Memorial Stadium maybe 6-10 times a year, and I guess I must not sit in those, I don't know, I sit up upstairs or wherever there's a seat available, and I like it wherever I am. I mean, I'm just going to fill it with yuppies. I'm not sure what you mean by saleable seats. I mean, is it not to mix with the public? I don't know.
no, I'll tell you what I mean, Senator. When we go out, for example, to try to sell the seats that you've just described that you sit in on a season basis, we can't do it. Nobody will buy an upstairs seat on a season basis. You're asking them to buy 81 games. And if they buy 81 games, they want seats that are down close to the field on the lower level. They'd like to have them all up against the rails so they'd be sitting almost on the field. They love that. But whether there's any merit in that position or not, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just telling you from our experience, from my experience in 7 years of effort, we cannot sell those seats on a season basis. And the economics of the game have become such that you just have to sell 15,000 seats on a season basis now if you're going to be confident that you're going to be operating in the red and the black for the season. Now, I'm not gainsaying what you just said. I'm perfectly comfortable if I go up there and sit. I mean, they're fine seats. The sidelines are great, and for a single game, people go up there and have a great time. We can't sell them on a season basis, and it isn't that our sales force isn't good. That's the experience all over the country in all 26 major league cities.
Might be cheaper for the state to buy 15,000 season tickets and forget the stadium. That might be
Well, I tell you,
would you buy that, sir? Is that a long-term lease?
I'm not.
State guaranteed you 15,000 season tickets a year?
Well, I didn't come, Senator Lapidus, looking for a subsidy. I don't think we should have a subsidy. I don't think we deserve a subsidy. I'm against subsidies for the private sector. I said before to you, I'm a taxpayer too. I'm a taxpayer in Maryland, and I have been for 37 years. I think that we could have a fine relationship as landlord and tenant, one that would be fair to the state and one that would be fair to the Orioles. But I don't want to ever have to come here and say that we need to have support in the way of the state buying tickets or the state granting some kind of subsidy to keep baseball. We don't need a subsidy. I can work and make this thing go in the private sector if I can just have the tools to work.
I mean, I'll just ask one more question, Mr. Chairman, since I know everyone else wants to try. And this is, I guess, a philosophical question, because in essence, it asks the state, and that is the public, to provide $200+ million for 2 new stadia. How do you justify that from a public posture? And that's not your role, you're in the private sector, but how do you ask us to justify that, especially in view of the humongous salaries that ball players own? I think the team owners are going to get together and say you're not paying $2.5 or $3 million for salaries. I think that's your problem with paying those salaries. But how can you ask the man in my district to pay for a sports lottery now now. It's been beer, it's been everything, but now I think we're back to sports lotteries. We'll hear about that later. You're asking the little guy on the street to subsidize you, and not the wealthy Marylander like yourself to pay a fair share of the taxes to support baseball. You're asking, because the rich aren't going to buy those lotteries. You know that, and I know that. You know exactly where lotteries are being bought, and I'd like you to justify that position, sir.
Well, I am absolutely convinced, Senator Lapidus, and I guess we don't have the time to debate this here today, but I'd be glad to meet with you privately at any time and show you our studies. I believe that the taxpayers of Maryland would get more than their dollars back from the presence of the franchises that would occupy the sites at the harbor. I believe that it would generate economically so much revenue for the state of Maryland that it would be a good and useful investment. I wish that I had the money to build a baseball stadium for my team.
too.
I wish I did. I know you do, but I wish I did because I'm satisfied you can make it work, and you can make it work so that it's a revenue producer.
Thank you. Senator Tate.
Williams, I'm certainly impressed with the testimony that you've offered, and I'd like to, lawyers are good at hypothetical situations, so I'd like to try to construct a hypothetical question, if I may. Suppose the Maryland General Assembly, having analyzed all the numbers and issues, decide that on balance it is a worthwhile investment to authorize at least the initial $75 million for land acquisition, pending whatever other agreements are going to be made in the public or private sector. And that is used as the ground plane or the basis for negotiating a long-term lease with your organization. And you have indicated, as a matter of fact, in your own testimony, that you would like to see something beyond your own moral commitment, and I respect that moral commitment, to safeguard the franchise for which you hold in trust for the people of Baltimore. I guess my question is, and it's part of the consideration as to whether it's worthwhile going ahead with this investment, whether you're talking about the initial $75 million or the whole 220 or whatever it comes out to be. Would you be willing, and I'm not asking you to negotiate across the hearing table, but I'd like to hear some indication of at least willingness to consider. Would you be willing to, in return for the decision by this body to go ahead with the proposal, would you be willing to guarantee to the people of the state of Maryland and the people of Baltimore that the franchise would not leave, not only by way of an agreement for a long-term lease, but by way of something analogous to a right of first refusal in the state, or something similar to that, so that if, as you say, in this risky enterprise, if you have a couple of bad seasons and you become financially strapped, that's a hypothetical. I don't see that. I don't see that probability.
I wish it were more hypothetical than it is.
Let's take it as a possibility, if not a probability. And you found it necessary to relinquish control of the franchise, or to sell it, or to do something with it. Would you be willing, under those circumstances, to ensure that the state has a right of first refusal in dealing with that franchise?
Senator, the Baltimore Orioles is owned by a corporation called Baltimore Orioles, Inc., which I own 100% of the stock. A lease between Baltimore Orioles, Inc. and the Stadium Authority survives my death. It doesn't make any difference whether I live or die. The corporation is bound by that lease. I have said to you that I'm willing to sign a long-term lease with the Stadium Authority. You're now asking me about a right of first refusal. You and I know from our experience that a right of first refusal depresses the value of any property, whether it be a franchise or a building or any other kind of entity. And I would have to give careful consideration before answering you that I would positively give a right of first refusal with no quid pro quo, because in my opinion, the franchise would be depressed in value about $10 million, if that happened.
Well, I think that's probably arguable, but at least you're willing to consider it. That's what
Sure. Listen, I came here with an open mind on every subject.
I think it's important, Mr. Williams, and as I said, I certainly respect what you said, and I respect your own personal commitment. I think it's important, at least important from my standpoint, for this body to understand that it does have a long-term commitment. We have seen instances where even long-term leases were broken by some franchises removed, so it's we'd like to hedge our bet with as much insurance as possible on it. So I'm sure you can understand
You
that.
have some excellent, I want to tell you, excellent lawyers negotiating for the Stadium Authority. And there won't be any loopholes in that lease by the time it gets finished.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Senator Cooley.
Mr. Williams, you indicated that you want to be able to break even the operation of the stadium, and I noticed you put it in that vein. Am I to assume from that your break-even costs are generated from revenues only at Baltimore Stadium?
No, they're generated in a number of ways, Senator. Our revenues come from our games at Baltimore at Memorial Stadium. They come from our contract for television of our games. They come from our radio contract. They come from our cable contract. And they come from the national contract with the networks, ABC and NBC, which have games of the week. Sometimes we participate in those games. They come from concessions, things that are sold at the ballpark to spectators. They come from parking, and they come from other ancillary sources such as sale of advertising and sale of scorecards and sale of yearbooks and things of that character. So it wouldn't be accurate to say that all our revenue was generated by the sale of live spectator seats.
I'm aware all your revenue is not generated, but I just want to make clear, you had indicated, and maybe I misunderstood, that on breaking, you wanted to break even at the stadium, and I was aware that there were other revenues.
We
So
just want to break even generally
you're talking about with
everything.
addition of all your revenues
All.
as opposed to your expenses.
All of it, Senator. And in our lease now with the city of Baltimore, all of our revenues, all the revenues that I just outlined are included in the top line, and we share the bottom line with the city.
There's been talk regarding a long-term lease. You said you're willing to enter into a long-term lease if in fact there is a new stadium built. But I've never heard any definition of what a long-term lease is.
Well,
Would you be willing to enter into a 30-year lease?
I don't want to intrude upon the negotiations. I understand, I'll tell you, I'm not going to duck your question because I'm going to answer it, but my understanding is that the negotiators for the Stadium Authority and my people have said that they were not going to discuss the terms of the lease until they had concluded the negotiations. But certainly something between 15 and 30 is a long-term lease.
Finally, you said you didn't want any subsidy from the legislature when Senator Lapidus suggested that perhaps we ought to buy 15,000 season tickets. It would be less expensive to the state. And I appreciate you saying you don't want any subsidy. Are you willing, or is your organization willing to put up any money toward the construction of the stadium? Private funding.
My understanding is that that's an issue on the table between the lawyers for the Stadium Authority and my people, specifically whether or not we would build our own office space, our own locker rooms, and whether we would pay for luxury boxes. And that's in negotiation now, and I would rather not take a position on that yet. locker rooms, the locker room for the home team. I think luxury boxes, I think the concession booths are all matters in which the Stadium Authority is seeking some form of commitment with respect to capital outlay.
My question doesn't deal with that. My question deals more specifically with a partnership with private industry, your organization, your corporation, on the funding of this stadium, which I understand is the cost of roughly $75 million for the stadium alone. Would your organization consider a commitment of $10 or $20 million?
My organization couldn't afford that, Senator. I'd like to make you feel good about that, but I can't, it won't let me make you feel good about it. I couldn't make a $20 million contribution to the construction of the stadium and stay alive economically.
Would you have any objection to if there is to be a new stadium, a stadium that's a multi-purpose stadium, both for baseball and for football?
Senator, I've seen a lot of stadiums across this country, most all of them that exist. I've said a number of times I've never seen a good dual-purpose stadium. I've never seen a good one, for the reasons that the sightlines are so different with baseball and football that architecturally it becomes a hodgepodge when you try to have both football and baseball played in the same stadium. The time lapse is also a big factor. The football season starts now, the exhibition football season, in the first week in August. Baseball has just passed the mid-season point in the first week in August. So that you have August, September, and if you're fortunate enough to get into the playoffs of the World Series, you have October, in which you are sharing the same field. There's no way that you can play baseball on a field which has been used for a football game after the game if there has been any precipitation. That means that you have mandatorily synthetic turf. That is undesirable, in my view, for baseball, and it's very undesirable from the point of view of the players. We have players who feel so strongly about it that they want put in their contracts, if their contract is null and void, if they have to play at home on synthetic turf. So that we have all these problems of trying to put the two games into one stadium. But, let me say this to you. I'm not going to come here today and posture pig-headed. I have an open mind on that. I want to cooperate with the legislature and the Stadium Authority. I want to say that on this subject, I'm from Missouri. I've never seen it work. That doesn't mean it can't work.
Let me try it a different way. If the legislature, in its wisdom or lack of same, determines that fiscally we cannot afford to go the route of two stadii, and effectively goes ahead and opts to build one stadium, multi-purpose, can I assume from your last answer that you would have difficulty then playing your games in the new stadium and would prefer to stay at the old stadium, or if you did come to the new stadium, you would then only be willing to sign a one-year contract in the new stadium?
You gave me a few options there that I have to canvass.
Yes.
The first option that you proposed gives me pause. I mean, I really am so troubled by a dual-purpose concept that the first question that you pondered to me is one I'm not really prepared to answer this afternoon. Whether I'd prefer to be where I am or go into a dual-purpose stadium. I really find grave troubles in playing in a dual-purpose stadium. And so too do all the people who are in them now from baseball. On the second subject, the second option that you gave me was was whether or not I would only sign a one-year lease, a year-to-year lease. No, I would never be so presumptuous as to think that you, or this legislature, its wisdom, would build the stadium if it had only a promise from me of a year-to-year lease. I don't think that's in the cards.
Thank you very much for your candor. I appreciate it if you could sometime before our deliberations are complete, not today, because you're not prepared to answer today, but give us some indication of that option I first gave. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator. Senator Mr. Wood, you have had evidently your staff or people that you have hired to look at Memorial Stadium as part of the adequacy. Have you had people look at the Camden Stadium to see if that site is adequate to serve the needs of the Baltimore Orioles and/or an NFL team, especially with the issue of parking?
I think the Camden site is far and away the best site of all those proposed. And it's interesting that you raised, Senator, the parking problem, because it would appear that if you had two stadiums on the Camden Yard site, there wouldn't be sufficient room for surface parking. But there is a great deal of parking in that area. I had the numbers at one point, and my mind was boggled at how many parking spaces there are within 5 blocks of the Camden area in office buildings. And those office building parking garages would be available at night when the Orioles play, and on Sunday when an NFL franchise would play. So that we would have probably 12,000 parking spaces within 4 or 5 blocks of the sports complex. And that would be perfectly adequate for all purposes.
But that is assuming, sir, that no other event is held in that inner harbor area. Have you taken that into consideration? I mean, I've been down
I'll tell
there
you
on
what,
weekends when there were events at the convention center, events at the Baltimore Arena, events at Festival Hall, and there wasn't a parking place to be found.
Senator, I have to exercise an act of childlike faith in this. We had experts on parking go through the area, make a survey to determine whether or not there was enough parking within 4 or 5 blocks of Camden Yard available night after night during the summer for baseball. And they came back and they told us that we'd have 12,500 spaces available for baseball. On Sunday, when football is played, or Monday night, we don't overlap with, obviously we wouldn't overlap with the football on Monday night. There would be equal number for football, Sunday or Monday.
Thank you. One additional question. Would you continue the 50-50 profit sharing agreement that you presently have with the city of Baltimore? Would you continue that or consider to continue that with the Sports Authority?
The thing that has troubled me about that, Senator, and I want to be absolutely candid with you, not just give you a quick answer. The thing that has troubled me about that is this. In the event that I died, whether there would be anyone who would be interested in buying a franchise which was in a 50% partnership with the state. It really troubles me.
Thank you. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Williams, as I mentioned to you earlier that I was a student at law school. Used to make this
That's what they say, everything that goes around comes around.
As I was saying, I wish I could make you as nervous now as you made me when you called.
I want to tell you, your lifetime ambition has been fulfilled.
now asking questions. In my district, which is Dewey Greenbelt, I've had 2 open meetings, and I've had plenty of correspondence. And the stadium is getting shut out as far as those constituents who are for it. The perception that you have tax windfall and you have a stadium. So the whole perception is that the stadium relates to the tax windfall problem. Not true, we understand that. Can you elaborate why, first I have to be convinced that the stadium is good for Baltimore and the state of Maryland. Could you just elaborate with your advocate ability how I can convince my constituents outside of Dave Iannucci right there, who's in my district, he's the only one who's voting for it. And he lives in Greenbelt. Can you elaborate how I can sell this? This is a good.
We've had 2 bad things happen to our state in the world of sports in recent years. We lost the Baltimore Bullets and we lost the Baltimore Colts. And I have been concerned, not because I'm in this sport, but because I'm concerned about anything that affects the image of the state that we live in and that we love, that there has been a very dramatic diminution in racing, horse racing here. This used to be one of the great racing states of America. It's the home of the Preakness. It's a place where there are great breeding stables. It's a place where there were several tracks. And we've seen a shrinking, a diminution. And I would love to see a turnabout in the world of sports here in the state of Maryland. Because even though it may not look economically to be a big thing to have a football team, baseball team, basketball team, and a lot of racing, the visibility is so much more tremendous than the economic impact that it's indescribable. For example, I was shocked and staggered one time to see that all the revenues generated by all the baseball teams, the Major League Baseball teams in America, were not equivalent to a large department store in Baltimore and a large department store in Washington. And yet, every day, in every paper, all over America, we're reading about the baseball team, the football team, the basketball team, and racing. These are high visibility factors for any state. Now, we have an opportunity in what is not the capital city of Maryland, but what is the principal city of Maryland, to have one of the most exciting attractions for our state, I think, in all America. We have a magnificent harbor complex, and I think the addition of this sports complex would make it the equivalent of anything across the nation. I don't think there'd be anything better than it across the nation. And I like to think big. I like to think bigger than I am, and I hope that the state will think bigger and bigger, and that the legislature will think bigger, and that we'll have in this one little area of your concern, namely sports in Maryland, that we'll make a dramatic step and start a revolution so that once again we can return to where we rightfully belong in the principal leisure industry in all the country.
Senator Simpson and Senator Griswold.
Mr. Williams, since you associating all these sports together, what is your opinion on betting on sporting events, such as baseball? What does that get to the stadium?
I'm against sports betting, Senator. I really am. I'm not against horse race betting. That's here to stay. That's part of our culture. But I am against betting on baseball games. I'm against betting on football games. And I'm against betting in sports books on any other competitive sports in which human beings are the competitors. Because I fear the temptations are so great that corruption could flow, and corruption of any kind in that vein would be the death knell of all sports.
And you base that because human beings are part of the
The competition.
competition. Thank you very much.
Mr. Williams, Senator Green said I would be next, but I feel much more comfortable since my relationships with you back in the 40s were more full sessions.
Senator, I remember very well that when I was a prefect at Georgetown University,
Correct.
that you were in my care. It makes me very proud to know that someone who was in my care is now a senator in the state of Maine.
Well, we are very proud to use it. Thank you for being here. But an added benefit that we appreciate is the Hagerstown Suns, and I think that is part of the answer to Senator Green. The Hagerstown Suns are a definite advantage to Western Maryland, and that's
And
part
that
of
is
the
one of the most successful minor league franchises in the country for the size of the town. It's been a great, great franchise. We've been very, very happy with it. As you may know, as you surely do know, Senator, and as the rest of you may know, we took that team from Miami and put it into Hagerstown, and it is 10 times more successful in Hagerstown than it was in Miami.
Senator Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I have two questions. One, you were earlier discussing your revenue drop and your 50/50 profit share. And many of us are concerned about what we see coming in the whole area of television revenue and renegotiation of contracts. And I was wondering if you could tell us the percentage, not dollar figure, just the percentage of that revenue flow that's made up of television, national.
I wish I had those numbers specifically, Madam Chairman, but I think that our electronic revenue today is close to 50% of our revenue.
That's radio and
Radio, cable, local television, national television.
Okay, the other question I have, and I too appreciate you being here to ask you personally and not communicate through the meeting. We have before us several options. One is to put two stadium, one is to build one. The other is to go ahead and buy the land, make no commitment. That has been suggested. One of the things that interested me, since we hear that the NFL may be this fall making a determination, given some of our difficulties with the funding source, what your thoughts would be if the legislature were to make a determination to supply the funding for the land and the revenue bonds for a football stadium this year, but purchasing the land, a decision being made on two stadium, and then move forward perhaps next year on funding. Would that be great difficulty? And I know you're moving forward now, negotiations and all, but has that thought been presented to you, or?
Well, I
So
think, no, it hasn't,
do it in a staged way,
it hasn't until you did, but just now, but I would think that basic business sense, and I don't have any information on this, I'm just giving you an educated guess, the basic prudence would indicate that the owners in National Football League would not make an expansion decision until they had their labor problems solved. And they have very serious labor problems. They have the expiration of their contract. They have the players asking for something that is very difficult to resolve at the bargaining table. They're asking for free agency, such as baseball has. And it's much easier to resolve money issues than it is to resolve philosophical issues in a labor negotiation. And I can tell you that from experience in 1981. And I think that before they touch expansion, before they touch it, they're going to have to put their house in order labor-wise. So I don't think there will be. Now, I'm trying to answer your question in a very circumlocucious way. I don't think there will be any decision on expansion in the National Football League this year. I don't think so.
And that creates some difficulty for me, Mr. Williams, because we have been told many different ways by many different people who have also been in touch with Mr. Rozelle, and in fact, that decision would move forward this fall. In fact, that's part of why this issue is before us this year. And I guess I can also draw a conclusion that the answer to my question might well be yes, but we could stage the Orioles first. Is that?
No, I don't want to. I prefaced my answer by saying that I don't have any information on this subject, that I'm giving you pure speculation. And it really is speculation. And if you have contrary information, and it's credible information, I would go rely on it rather than what I've just said. It just doesn't make sense to me that they would be considering expansion before they had a labor contract for 5 years.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, I have a question that's sort of technical. I'm just not sure. I know the answer. When you indicate that you're interested in breaking even, and that's really what you're interested in, from an accounting standpoint, of course, we know that you pay your players a rather substantial sum of money, and of course that's taken into account. Is there what about depreciation of baseball players? Is that something that is taken into account?
Well, that's long gone for me,
It is?
Senator. Yeah, it was gone the first 3 years. And I don't want to mislead you. I guess I did stage that awkwardly. I was trying to define what I meant by support. And I said if I could break even, I would say people were supporting me. Naturally, I'm interested in doing better than breaking even, but I would regard it as sufficient support if I could break even and not be in a position of subsidizing the baseball.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Case-Meyer and Senator Pease.
Could you tell us if there are any other stadiums in the United States, if there are any other stadiums? I know Robbie just constructed one in Miami with private towers, but are there any other owners who have financed stadiums? And secondly, could you give us an indication of how you've been approached by other cities, by other people wanting to talk about bringing the Orioles to their city, and give us an idea of how many other cities have sort of expressed that kind of interest in Baltimore?
2 questions.
Right.
The first question is, I guess you're going to ask me if there are other stadiums which have been privately built in recent years. None to my knowledge, Senator. The only one is the one in Miami. I guess it's up in, it's really in Hollywood. In that instance, the National League, I understand, was very concerned about that venture because Robbie pledged his whole franchise as collateral for that venture, and they weren't too happy about the possibility of having bankers come in and take that over. The second thing, have I ever been approached? The answer is no, because I've never entertained an approach. I've never suggested to anyone, and I told you that at the start,
I wasn't trying to...
that I was amenable, that I was enticable.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
I was just
if
trying
you don't send out signs that you're interested, you don't get approached. That's
What I
all.
was just trying to find out is to show people here that we have a commodity that I would suspect to be in tremendous demand if it were available. So I'm trying to get to. You agree?
I'm not interested.
I didn't mean interested, but wouldn't you say that the Orioles would be very attractive to many other cities? That's all I'm trying to get to.
I hope so.
I think we have time for one more question at this point. Senator Pease. We'll end with Senator Pease. You started with
Well, I tried to hold this up earlier because I didn't want to take all the questions. I thought everybody should have an opportunity. One of the things, since the property tax, and this is a major concern for me, since the property tax in Baltimore City is more than 2 times the property tax of anywhere else in the state, how can one justify removing a minimum of $75 million off the tax rolls in perpetuity you from a neighborhood that very much loves you. In other words, the neighbors at Memorial Stadium want you to remain at virtually any cost, in other words, to do all the improvements there. And most of the neighbors in Camden Yards do not want you. So you have Memorial Stadium, which has the great possibility of becoming a white elephant on the hands of the city of Baltimore that cannot afford to even tear it down. It'd be $10 million probably to tear down Memorial Stadium. So that's my concern. I want you to stay in Baltimore. I want you to have a good facility. I want the Orioles to win. And I want to help you, but I'd like to help you on 33rd Street. I want you to make the miracle on 33rd Street a reality, and it's within your power to do that, and you would solve a number of problems for virtually the entire legislature, not the least of which would be cost.
Senator, I want you to come to 10 games in the new stadium and sit downstairs, but I'm not qualified, really qualified, to discuss with you the tax impact on the city of Baltimore. I really don't have any expertise on that. You said something that I didn't know in your question, that the people in the Camden Yard area don't want the stadium. I didn't know that. I haven't been told that the people there don't want us. I don't know about Memorial Stadium and what the neighbors feel with respect to its loss as a sports entity. So I really can't be much of a help to you in those areas.
I just want to tell you, sir, and I mean this sincerely, that Memorial Stadium is in my legislative district, and there have been some problems with parking, et cetera, but the neighbors really love the Orioles and like having you at Memorial Stadium and very much want to keep you. And my correspondents and the neighbors I've spoken to at the Camden Yard site really don't want you. I think it'll be landlocked. If you think it's hard to get in and out of Memorial Stadium, what do you get in Camden Yard? That's my prediction, and I hope you never get there. But, I guess the one thing that the correspondents, I can tell the supporters of the stadium by the amount of the rag content in the stationery. I'm telling you, the 100% bond, all the fancy pants want the stadium. That stack is very small. And the ones for writing, you know, the cheap envelopes that the writer there, the real people do not want the stadium in Camden Yards. And I'm telling you that, sir, very sincerely. The only ones who want it are the fat cats. And I really hope you'll consider Memorial Stadium, and I hope you'll work with you in getting a large amount of money to redo Memorial Stadium to $17,000, and I promise to buy one season ticket if you stay.
You want to respond or something? I don't think you need to respond.
I don't think that was a question.
No, we're used to that. We're used to that.
Ask now questions.
But Mr. Williams, we appreciate you taking your time from your busy schedule to be with us. We're sorry that you did not get more notice. We certainly hope the Orioles are in first place again this year, and we want to wish you well. Thank you very much.
Can I add one thing, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, when you showed that picture of Sports Illustrated, the cover,
Yes.
and it is promoting the state of Maryland, those of us who represent Harford County are very proud of those three fellas, too. We hope you have a good year.
The thing I would least like to do today, this morning, I probably would have said to follow the most famous defense attorney of our time as lead our speaker. I do have to disagree with one thing that Mr. Williams said when he said that horse racing was on the decline in the state. And as I gathered from his comment, he said that because there are fewer racetracks than there used to be. I could mention, I think, that there are a lot fewer baseball teams than there used to be in the state. Maryland, we used to have a wonderful thing called the Eastern Shore League, one of the happy memories, nostalgic memories of this sport. But I think baseball is in better shape now than it was actually in the state of Maryland at this time, at that time. As for racing, it's on the upgrade in the state, more than in any other state in the country right now. To set the background of why we're here, which is in opposition to Senator Simpson's bill, obviously Bill 906. There are more than 200 people who signed this petition and who came down here today. And Senator Simpson referred to people taking off from work to go to the racetrack. These people